So, the Junji Ito collection anime ended a while ago, and I just barely got around to finishing it, like, a few minutes ago. And it took me so long to finish it because, I hate to say it, but I wasn't really that into it. Um, I ended up finishing it because a friend of mine told me that the Tomiya episode had been released, which confused me because I thought it was supposed to be a two-part OVA, which I'm hoping still comes out. But that really was what made me finish the series. And I did not hate it. I wasn't angry about how things were handled. I think there were things that were handled poorly. But there was just something about it that didn't really have me going back for more. I do want to go through each episode like super brief just to kind of give an overall opinion, but if you want to make things a little more interesting, take a shot every time you hear this word. So after the first episode, we get to see a fashion model in action, and I gotta say, I really liked the voice acting for fashion model. I thought her voice was, well, perfect, pretty much. And I enjoyed the episode itself. I thought, it was going in a better direction now. The one gripe I had was the scene where she's chasing the lead character in the forest. It's towards the end. I thought it was poorly animated, or it could have been animated a bit better, but that was really my only gripe. The episode after that was Long Dream, which I thought was good too, but I had issues with the animation again. I guess really you can't live up to Junji Ito's art, or at the very least you should try. And I guess there was some effort here, but I just don't like the line scribbles whenever there's a shadow in someone's face. I hated it so much. Now after that, in episode 3, we got to see Boy in the Crossroads and Slug Girl. Now this was probably the episode where I started to feel that they were going somewhere great with it. I thought, okay, they started off slow with Soichi, and then they're slowly bringing us into the crazy world of Junji Ito, and I know it's more of a chill story. I guess it's not like a crazy story, but I thought they did a really good job with Boy on the Crossroads. And there's a live-action film adaptation that I have yet to see, but I've heard very good things about it. Actually, there's an live-action adaptation of Long Dream as well, which is such a blast. But anyway, episode 4 is where I started to have more issues with the series. Episode 4 starts with Shiver, which I was really looking forward to, because it is one of my favorite short stories, but again, the animation didn't do it justice. If you have a phobia of a bunch of holes, I know there's a fancy term for it, but I'm too lazy to look it up right now. I highly doubt that this episode really affected you, because the animation just didn't look good. And the one part that really kind of bothered me was the scene where the lead character is going into his room and his friend is knocking on the window. Now, in the manga, it was drawn so cool, and you can kind of imagine what it would look like in an anime form, when the lightning strikes and all that, but it was done so lazily. It almost felt like, this happens, so we gotta put it in, but let's not really make it atmospheric or anything. So I was disappointed with that. That could have been a really great scare. The fashion model chasing the lead character in the woods could have been a good scare. And as I mentioned in the first video I did for the first episode, the bathroom stall scene with the spider could have been a good scare. Another issue I had with the Shiver episode was that it was just kind of rushed. The second half of it, Marionette Mansion, I thought, was good. Showed a little bit more of the crazy side, and that one didn't feel rushed to me, so I was like, okay, maybe the first one was just, it was a miss, right? And the next one would be a hit. So episode 5 was Ongoing Tale of Oshikiri. Now, yes, I have notes just to kind of make sure that I'm going through every point, but I didn't even really write anything for that episode. wasn't very interested. That's not one of my favorite short stories, so maybe I'm a little biased and didn't care. But then the second half of it was another Soichi story, which was fine, but I didn't expect to see him so soon, I guess. Although I admit I did like the first episode, I didn't care to see him again in the series. But it was fine. It was a decent episode regardless. So episode 6, Window Next Door, I thought had a good length. This one was short, but it didn't feel rushed. The one issue I had, though, is, the actual neighbor next door, for some reason her mouth didn't move when she spoke. I liked the voice actress. Again, I thought they picked a good actress for that role, and it was creepy. But why they wouldn't make her mouth move, I don't know. And that's something I really should have brought up in some of the other episodes, though, is a lot of times they stick to just kind of a still frame of what's going on rather than animating it. I mean, I know it's all in animation, but why? I don't understand why they would go with still frame for a good portion of the episodes when the manga is still frame. I hope I'm making sense, because I'm not very familiar with the terminology when it comes to animation, but anyway. The only thing I wrote for Gentle Goodbye was that it felt rushed. Now, episode 7 was also rushed. And not only was it rushed, especially in the beginning, they even excluded the scene that I thought was the creepiest in the manga, which is when the lead character's dead friend is humming the song while she's under the sheet. I thought that was so creepy in the manga, and they just completely left it out in the episode. Now, I'm not sure why, but they did. And even the beginning of the episode, where they're kind of trying to establish the allure of the record, it was rushed. I didn't feel like they handled it well. And then they have the character running around, of course, trying to listen to it, and everyone just suddenly wants to hear it too, and it's like, no. Now, the second half, Town of No Roads, I thought was better. I haven't actually read that short story in manga format, so it could have been rushed. I don't know. I had never read the story, so it didn't feel rushed to me, but that might be the reason why. But of course, by this time, we've noticed a good pattern. It's hit or miss with the segments. Now, episode 8, Honored Ancestors and the Circus Comes. Really, the only thing that I noted down was the shadow lines that I mentioned. And again, I don't know the correct terminology, but whenever there was like a shadow on the character, and like they chose to fill it in with like a bunch of lines, and it just looks so sloppy, and that's really my only gripe with that episode. Now, episode 9 is the one that I wanted to talk about the most, and actually I had skipped 7 and 8 and watched 9 first, because it was the Tomiya episode, of course. The Tomiya episode, I feel, is the one that mostly everyone was looking forward to, including me. Tomiya is my favorite monster in general. She's a big inspiration for a project that I'm working on for this channel. So of course I, got home from work and I was like, everyone shut the fuck up, I'm gonna watch this episode. And I saw someone post a joke on Tumblr that I thought was pretty accurate. It was more of a question. They were saying, did they spend like 80% of the budget on Tomiya's face? And it really does seem like that, because when you compare the animation from previous episodes and then just pause it on Tomiya's face, and it looks amazing. And I'm glad they did that, because she's supposed to look amazing, right? So it would have been horrible if they just animated her poorly. So thankfully, if they did happen to use a lot of the budget for her face, good job. But anyway, the episode itself, I thought it was really good. They, of course, stuck very religiously to the manga. It pretty much was a page-by-page adaptation. They didn't rush it. They didn't skip anything that I could remember. But for some reason, I still kind of was left feeling like I wanted more, I guess, from the episode. And I don't know, again, if it had anything to do with the choice to use a lot of the still frame shots. It could have been that. It was a very faithful adaptation of that chapter. But yeah, for some reason I kind of felt like I wanted more from it. With that said, though, I think it was very well done anyway. It could be just me being, like, I don't know, a spoiled brat or something, wanting something more, but I thought it did not disappoint, I'll say that. Now, and I guess there was no budget left for the second half, Blood Bubble Bushes. I haven't read that short story either, but there's one specific shot of two characters from a distance where you could just tell a lot of effort was not put into the animation. But other than that, the episode was alright. Now, episode 10 featured Greased and Bridge. Now, Greased is the episode where I was kind of glad the animation wasn't that great because it's gross. And I could imagine had it been top-notch animation, it would have grossed us all out. Which is the point. I mean, it's supposed to be gross, but, you know, I kind of didn't mind that the animation was so-so. The one thing I did like about that episode as well was they used sort of like a yellowish, brownish filter over the whole thing, which I thought worked very well. Which is interesting because I normally don't like filters, just in general. I just feel like they're way too obvious. Like, you can tell there's a filter, you know, someone posted a picture on Instagram and stuff like that. But I thought it worked very well with this specific episode. The second half, Bridge, I just had an issue with, again, I thought it was a little rushed, but also the ghosts don't look scary. Now, they're scary looking in the manga, but in the anime, the animation is just so lazily done. And I kind of feel bad. They might have done the best that they could, and I would hate to offend them by saying that it was lazily done, but when you compare it to the artwork in the manga, I think most of us can agree that it just doesn't look the way it could have. Now, the last two episodes I'm kind of cramming together. Episode 11 and 12, Supernatural Exchange Student. Can't even read my own handwriting. And Rumors. I really didn't write anything for those because it was pretty much the same thing, the animation, and they felt rushed. Now, here's the thing, because I know I've kind of made it seem like I didn't like the series. I didn't love it either. I'll say that. But it wasn't bad. The thing is, I feel like they could have taken a lot more time with each episode. If anything, they should have kept each episode as one story, rather than splitting it into two, because they kind of sacrificed a lot of good moments in some of the stories just to kind of fit both of them in the time frame. I don't know, they could have maybe thought of a way to get a shorter story in with a longer one. That way they can actually adapt the longer one the best way they could, rather than having to shorten it. Or again, they could have just had an episode be one short story, because there's so much you can do with animation that you can't do on a manga. In a manga, your picture stays still, there's no sound, you can imagine things, you can imagine sound effects, but once you put it in anime form, you have the option to elevate everything with a scary soundtrack, with scary sound effects, by making a scene longer, you know, so it kind of gives you that feeling of dread. But none of that was done. I really just feel like they had a little checklist, like this needs to be done, this needs to be done, let's just whatever, finish it, there it is. It's like they tried to release it as fast as they could, and it's Junji Ito, they should have taken their time, I think. Not only that, but the overall anime didn't really give me the same feeling that the mangas do, which is probably the reason why I kind of lost interest like halfway through there. Initially I thought it was because I already knew some of the stories, so it wasn't new and I just, you know, wasn't really affected by it. But even with the stories that I was not familiar with, I just wasn't as drawn in. I didn't feel the same way I felt when I would read the mangas. And I tried thinking of a word to describe that feeling, but maybe I need to spend more time with the dictionary because I couldn't really think of one. But you know, it's that feeling like that, oh fuck, you know, you the first time you read Uzumaki, you're like, what the hell, you know? I never felt that way with anime. So again, overall, I did not dislike the anime series. I think for what it was decent. It was faithful in a lot of episodes, but it was lacking in a lot of other ones too. It's pretty cool that we even have a Junji Ito anime, especially one with a Tomiya episode. I think that's incredibly awesome. And really the only reason I'm gonna buy the series when it comes out on DVD is because I've read that Junji Ito is supposed to do original artwork for the release, which is amazing. So, but yeah, I mean, I think fans of the manga would like the series. Like being the key word. I don't think anyone would really like go crazy over it. I think it's decent, and I think other fans will agree that it's decent, but not doesn't quite hit the mark. But I feel that it's a good starting point for someone who hasn't read any of the manga. If they happen to stumble upon the anime, it's a good starting point. I mean, it would give them a taste of what kind of things Junji Ito has up his sleeve, I guess you can say. So again, if you finish the whole series, let me know what you think. I would love to talk about it. The only thing I'm left wondering is if they're gonna fix some of the animation with the DVD release. I think a friend of mine said that they did that with Berserk. And they did it with Sailor Moon Crystal as well. They like went back in and fixed some of the more lazy illustrations. So hopefully they do that. You know, maybe they'll get more money from the views or something. But that is all I have to say. So until next time, pleasant screams.